Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Srzavosty with the Deepest Dream YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more movie reviews and exclusive one-on-one interviews that I have. And also, I'm going to start in my messy room, start digging up some archival interviews that I had from my 30 plus years of doing interviews. I don't have a really big archive, but there are some video interviews that I definitely want to share in this channel in the coming weeks and months and years as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your support. Now, for this video, this is a review of the Netflix film Interceptor, starring ELSA Pataki. So you might know Elsa from from her role in the Fast and Furious films. She's the wife of Chris Hemsworth, and yes, she's very, very good in Interceptor. Really liked her in this film. I saw her in those couple of Fast and Furious films. Don't know her body of work very well. So this is actually, for me, I'm sure some of you might have seen a lot of her films and shows and whatnot. This is really my big introduction to see what ELSA Pataki can do, and she nails her role as the action heroine in Interceptor. The plotline centers on J.J. Collins. She is an army captain, very dedicated to her job. Her dream job, for a brief split second, was to land a job in the Pentagon, and she nailed it. The problem is, due to the powers that be, she gets demoted. And even though she's a person of principle and integrity, there is harassment in every level you go, whether it's the government, the military, your daily job. Harassment is everywhere, and that's one of the themes behind Interceptor, one of the sneaky little themes that's put into the fabric of this actioner. Okay, so some of you might not like this whole harassment and job situation, but for me, it worked. It's really interesting that a heroine, protagonist would have this backstory within the framework of this narrative. It worked for me personally. Now, in the broader sense, Earth is in trouble, specifically the United States. There are 16 missiles headed to some of America's biggest cities, and it's up to this interceptor base to actually take down these 16 missiles and blow them up sky high before they take any lives. The only person who can actually save America from this movie, from this threat, is ELSA Pataki, playing J.J. Collins, that army captain. She is stationed at this new interceptor base. This is what actually starts off as a demotion, really ends up being a promotion, because in the big picture of things, it's her job to actually save pretty much millions of people, millions of lives in the U.S. If she doesn't, then things are not looking good. So at the head of the snake is the antagonist, is played by Luke Bracey. He plays this guy named Alex, and Alex is a former military operative. He has a bunch of mercenaries along for the ride, and their job is to take down this interceptor base and take down these missiles so these 16 other missiles can hit the U.S. and cause mass destruction. Okay, so that is the premise of Interceptor. Again, it's J.J. Collins, played by ELSA Pataki, as the only person who is in the way of Luke Bracey, aka Alex, and his men. Actually, there's one woman as well, and it's a very interesting hand-to-hand combat situation with ELSA Pataki. Now, I mentioned hand-to-hand combat. The big spine of this movie, I think that the real big anchor behind what makes Interceptor works is it's broken down ultimately into a series of hand-to-hand combat situations with her and just several of the mercenaries. And ultimately, there's not a spoiler, because as a viewer, you're ultimately looking for the final showdown between the good person and the bad person, right? The ultimate Western showdown, the duel, right? So yeah, so she actually ends up fighting hand-to-hand with a bunch of these antagonists, including, at the end, Luke Bracey. On a very simple level, this movie would work just as a mild recommendation as a guilty action film, but there are a couple of reasons why it's actually a little bit above that. It's an above average actioner, and instead of giving this movie 3 out of 5 stars, I'd give it 3.5 out of 5. And that half star means a lot to me, because I would recommend this film. This movie has some really solid rewatchability to it as well, because I definitely want to see some of those hand-to-hand sequences again. They're really well done. The movie is directed by Matthew Reilly. Matthew Reilly makes his directing debut with Interceptor, and he's mainly known as a novelist, a best-selling novelist. And it's amazing that what he was able to pull off with his first film. And it's not $150 million action or something like that. It's not The Northman. It's not an MCU film. That said, this is not a 500,000 indie film as well. Okay, this is a solid B action film that Matthew Reilly, I have no idea the backstory on how he was hired and how he attached himself to this. The only thing I know is he's a co-writer of this film. He co-wrote the movie with Stuart Beattie. Now, what's interesting about Stuart Beattie is Beattie's known for a bunch of films like Pirates of the Caribbean. As a screenwriter there, he also penned the screenplay to one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies, Collateral, directed by Michael Mann. And if you've ever seen Collateral, you know it's a very tight action thriller and filled with some really great performances, namely by Tom Cruise, and Jamie Foxx is also very good in it. So Beattie lends his talents to the whole fabric of Interceptor. He co-writes the screenplay with the aforementioned Matthew Reilly. And I don't know how they worked well, if they worked together in the same room or who penned the screenplay first. But the thing is, you have two really talented writers, Reilly coming from the book world and Stuart Beattie being just a veteran screenwriter of the last 20, 25 years. You put them together and they pen a really good script out of a B action movie. You can have a lot lesser writers doing an obligatory action movie, and it would, for me, as an action homer, it would still work. But the fact that you have two talented writers behind the scenes trying to nail out a really good story, there's a slight uptick for me. Also, ELSA Pataki, she's very good in this movie. The action sequences are very believable. She gets her butt kicked a lot of times, and she does a lot of butt kicking as well. Yeah, she convinced me. Look, the thing is, on the short view is you're thinking, well, she's married to Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth is one of the executive producers behind Interceptor, right? And this could be a vanity project for ELSA Pataki because Hemsworth, I think he was seen, I forgot, was it called Extraction? Hemsworth has worked with Netflix before. Maybe this is part of the whole Netflix package with Hemsworth. That said, for me, this is a completely successful ELSA Pataki vehicle. And if I have one minor complaint regarding Interceptor, Chris Hemsworth, there's going to be that obligatory cameo in the film. I feel, as much as I like Chris Hemsworth as an actor, and I love Thor, I love all his movies, I think the cameo went a little bit too far. I just wanted one quick cameo, but he pops up a couple of times throughout the movie. And for me, I just wanted it all about ELSA Pataki and Luke Bracey and the other officers, the good people and bad people aboard this Interceptor base. So when it cut to him for some comic relief, the first time was fine, but I think it cut to him maybe a couple more times, and I just did not like that. But that's just a minor complaint regarding the whole world of Interceptor. Okay. Also, what's interesting about this movie is halfway through, I was complaining that I didn't need this whole flashback sequence because it deals with her close-knit relationship with her father. And her father, he's a military veteran, and he ends up being a very good support for his daughter, right, for J.J. Collins. And he always tells her to keep on fighting, never give up the fight, all that stuff. He tries to hammer that into her and try to encourage her just through the thick and thin. The thing is, there's a part where the flashback sequence. I was watching it and I just said, I cannot take one more flashback sequence. This is getting wearying. But what's funny is my initial complaint turned into a positive when I realized the flashback sequences, though at the moment seemed unnecessary, they ultimately work their way into the ending, which I thought was really good as well. There's a really nice message towards the third act, which I thought was memorable and actually a bit resonant, which you don't need from these kind of action movies, but it's there. Also, the third act, we're talking about action sequences, and the way Matthew Reilly decided to have J.J. Collins try to overcome one of the obstacles with the use of the physicality of ELSA Pataki. I'm not going to give too much away regarding that, but there is a moment that I thought was really stand out, and I thought it was really cool, and it happened outside the base, and it was really well done. So overall, Interceptor gets pretty solid marks for me. 3.5 out of 5. Solid recommendation. A movie that pleasantly surprised me. I hope to see more of ELSA Pataki as an action heroine, and we'll probably go on IMDb and watch some of Pataki's previous work. I really liked her in this film, and no disrespect to Hemsworth. I wish he was just in that quick cameo, but some of you may disagree. Some of you may wish he was actually one of the co-stars in the film and completely disagree with my take on this. And Luke Bracey, by the way, what's interesting about Luke is I really liked him in a film several years ago called Danger Close. It's a war film. Check that out. Look it up on IMDb, Danger Close. Very, very well done film. That movie was written by Stuart Beattie, one of the writers in Interceptor. So it's interesting to see whether Bracey got a leg up as far as his role goes from Beattie. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a simple twist of coincidence and fate regarding why he got the job in Interceptor. Oh, finally, the Bracey character as a villain, it's not as showy as Alan Rickman in Die Hard or just a colorful scenery-chewing bad guy. But I like the fact that this Alex character was very dry and very well measured, even though he is pretty psychotic regarding his intentions. And I'm not going to really get into what his real motivations are regarding trying to launch those 16 missiles at the US. But I like the way his character played out. And it's not your stereotypical villain that you see, where it's either very like a scenery chewing, violent, bloodthirsty kind of person, or it was just a nice little take on the villain trope. So Interceptor, when you see it on your Netflix feed and you're thinking, oh, this seems like a really, some of you will just watch it because it's an action film, but some of you will say, well, this looks like a cheap little action movie. I don't think I don't want to give it a shot. I would say give it a shot because there are a couple of plot points and character development situations that I think you might appreciate. Or may not. Would love to hear what you think of Interceptor and tell me if this movie worked for you. Thanks again for supporting me here on the Deepest Stream YouTube channel. I co-host a podcast with Anderson Cowan called Cinematics, a movie podcast, and I also co-host a weekly movie podcast called Find Your Film with my buddies Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes. Anderson Cowan, Bruce Purkey, and Eric Holmes are all my buddies, and they're all even bigger cinephiles and more. How would I say this? Yeah, I'm fumbling for words. They're more eloquent and elaborate and descriptive and better reviewers than me. So, yeah, they're great guys. Speaking of great, hopefully Interceptor is great for you. Tell me what you think on the comments below. Take care and have a great week watching movies. Thanks again. Bye.